Hey, it's Missy.
It's April.
And this is SheelaNaGig. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Guess what? It's spooky season.
It is spooky season. Happy October.
Happy October. Happy Halloween. It's exciting. I can't say that, I'm looking at the fall leaves and the colors and it's beautiful because I'm from Michigan, but that doesn't really happen in California. But there is something that feels a little bit different in the air, right?
It does.
It's a little bit cooler.
It's actually 80 degrees.
Okay. Something feels a little cooler. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's better than 110.
Maybe I need a jacket at night.
Right?
It cools down more at night. That's
it does.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As if you can't tell, we're a little desperate for a little something of a shift in the season after a very hot summer.
Yeah, I guess we're a little desperate. It's true. It's true. But there's, spooky season. It's kind of fun. Halloween's coming up. And
I have to tell you, my son is so into Halloween. He put up a big, giant inflatable pumpkin.
Oh, I saw that at your house, right?
On our lawn. Yeah, he did it in the middle of September.
Oh my gosh.
That's how desperate he is.
I love that. I have to get all my Halloween decorations. I still have a 12-year-old, so I really need to get those Halloween decorations out.
Yeah, you're slacking.
I put it on my list for this weekend, so I'm hoping to do it. That's my plan.
All right.
But spooky season is fun.
It is
October
fun.
The witching season.
Yeah.
And you may remember, we've been around a year now.
Yes, we have. Happy anniversary, by the way.
Happy anniversary. It's so exciting. So last October, it was interesting because, we're coming up on the spooky season, and my son said, well, what are you and April going to do? You're going to do some Halloween episodes, aren't you? Do you remember that?
I remember that.
And I was like, what? And he goes, no. Everybody loves Halloween. You have to do some Halloween episodes. So it was really fun. We did Marie Lavelle. We did the Salem Witches.
Yes,
We did Helen Duncan.
Right.
So it was really fun. And so we thought that we would, once again, repeat that and pick some spooky Sheilas for the month of October.
Right.
I don't know if the spooky's the best word, but some
Halloween related.
Yeah.
Something a little esoteric for you.
Esoteric, I like that word.
Yeah,
That's good. That's
why
good.
not?
Yeah. But how are you, April? I just saw you in Northern California.
We're right. We did. We had a rendezvous in Northern California with our friend PK Maxx.
Yay! It was her 70th birthday, and we love PK Maxx, famous fashion designer. Some of you may know Phyllis Maxx or PK Maxx.
And I had to go back early, but tell everybody what you did when I went home on Monday.
Well, I was really sad April couldn't come, but I did drag PK. Thank you, PK, if you're listening. To the Keen Eyes Gallery, the Margaret Keen Gallery in San Francisco on Gary Street. And I was absolutely delighted. I actually did an Instagram post about it. You may have seen. Got to speak to Robert, her personal friend, who's also the executive director of the gallery.
And if you didn't hear our podcast on Margaret Keen, please go back and check it out. She's a remarkable Sheela, and it's an amazing story.
Yeah, even if you saw Big Eyes, you're going to get a little bit more information because I finally watched Big Eyes.
Yes.
So and Robert told me actually, which I thought was really interesting, that Margaret saw Big Eyes and she thought it was very well done. She thought it was very correct.
I'm so glad.
There were aspects of it that were exaggerated for Hollywood, and she acknowledged that. But she said that it was, it was pretty apropos, pretty right on track. So
that's awesome.
I thought that was a good thing to hear. And of course, after seeing the Key Museum, I went home that night and watched the movie. I finally earned it.
Oh, you finally earned the movie.
I did. But I do think our podcast brings some other pieces to it.
Oh, definitely.
That are interesting additional pieces that you might want to check out.
Yeah, you did a nice deep dive.
I did. I was really proud of it. Although I regret not speaking to Robert beforehand. When I talked to him, he said, "Why didn't you call me?" And I said, why didn't I call him? I should have called. I'm learning. We've been around a year.
Yes, we are. This is definitely a work in progress, right? We're both learning.
Yeah, exactly. But the gallery, I digress here. The gallery was just beautiful and unbelievable. And she was such a diverse artist. I mean, obviously we know about her Big Eyes paintings, and that's what we think of when we think of Margaret Keen. But she was so much more than that. She was very versatile, and she could do so many different types of art, and that was really interesting to take a look at that, take a deep dive into that at the gallery. We had a wonderful, wonderful shout out to Anthony, who's also an artist, who was our tour guide. And he knew so much and answered all of our questions.
And I do have to throw in there that the gallery was technically closed.
Yes.
But Missy called and gave such a pleading and and a plea to please be allowed in that they actually did. They opened up the gallery just for her and PK, and she got a private tour.
It was lovely, I have to say, because you do have to call to make an appointment to go see the Margaret Keane Gallery or the Keen Eyes Gallery. And I did leave a voicemail, and we did send a Facebook message, but I didn't hear back. And I kind of brought that up too when I just happened to call and he picked up. I was like, oh my gosh, So that was kind of exciting. And I did say, well, I did send a Facebook message, and I did leave a voicemail. But and he was kind of trying to say, oh, come tomorrow. And I said, I can't. I'm going back to LA. I had like an hour and a half window, literally. And thankfully, he said, I'll call you right back. And call us back. He says, Anthony lives really close by. He can come show you. And all the stars aligned.
She hated it. No, I'm kidding.
I want to post more pictures, but I won't bore you. I'm going to show April, though.
So Missy and I always have this thing where I'm like trying to reel her in. Okay. And she gets so excited, and she just like can't share enough.
But really, it's true. It's true. And I was delighted to be there with PK because I think she really enjoyed it, too. And I actually bought an $85 print, which I had to have.
Which was lovely, I have to say.
It's beautiful, and I'm going to frame it and remember my trip. And I'm going to take April there, too. Eventually, we're going to we decided we're going to go back next year for PK's 71st birthday.
Right.
It's going to be a yearly thing.
Yes.
And when we go back next year, we're going to go, right, April?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the plan.
That's the plan.
All right. So anyway, though, I do digress. We digress. That's what we do. But
we do.
It's Halloween. It's spooky season.
It is
April.
Spooky season.
I do believe that April has a Halloween Sheela for us.
I do.
And I'm super excited. So pray do tell.
Okay. So you may think that the name Witch Duck Road is a little peculiar and out of place, especially if you're navigating Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Ooh.
However, Witch Duck Road happens to be one of the town's most well-traveled streets. The history of the name belongs to a legacy that dates back hundreds of years, and it represents one of the state's darkest hours, I'm sorry to say.
Oh my. I'm so intrigued because I've never heard of this.
Oh, well, good. I found
Bring it, girl. Bring it.
I'm bringing it. Her name was Grace Sherwood. And she lived at the time in a place called Pungo, which is located in Princess Anne County in what is known today as Virginia Beach. And she was born in 1660 to John and Susan White, the daughter of John and Susan. And John was a carpenter and a farmer, and he was of Scottish descent. It's a little unclear whether he was born in America or migrated to America.
Okay.
Her mother was English. And there's just not a lot of information about her upbringing.
Well, it's only the 1600s. I don't know why there's not more information.
No,
right?
Records are very sketchy. Yeah. But in April of 1680, at the age of 20, Grace White married James Sherwood. And James was a respected landowner in the Lynn Haven Parish area, and they both attended the Lynn Haven Parish Church where they were married.
Okay.
And the couple had 3 sons, James, John, and Richard. And at the time of their wedding, Grace's father, John White, gave the couple 50 acres of land. And upon his death in 1681, he added on the remainder of his 145-acre farm.
Ooh, that sounds generous.
Yeah, it was very generous. But even though they did acquire a lot of farmland, the Sherwoods were poor. They primarily lived amongst other small land-owning families, and Grace herself had worked both on the family farm, and she grew her own herbs, which she did to care for people and animals. She served as a midwife in the community to other women.
Okay.
And surviving records really portrayed her as, interestingly enough, attractive, stubborn, and a nonconformist who wore pants to work
Ooh, we love her.
Right. And she spoke up for herself.
Oh, yeah. Go, girl.
And she cared really deeply for animals.
Aww.
And she was a healer. She described herself as a healer, and she was known throughout her area, her region, as a healer. And although there are no drawings or painting of Grace, she was said to have all these wonderful attributes, as well as possessing a wonderful sense of humor.
I love her.
And
Did you fall in love with her, April?
I did. I really fell in love with her. And one of the things that I learned about her was, she wore her trousers to work on the farm, and that was unusual, as we've talked about, women wearing dresses back in the 1600s.
I just can't get over. We were just talking about Marianne, who was wearing, several like skirts and
Layers.
petticoats to go hunting
Pantaloons,
for dinosaurs. Yeah,
Right, and excavating them in the ocean, in the sand, getting filthy dirty.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because her unusual clothing was said to attract men and upset their wives. Apparently she was attractive, and the men really liked the trousers and kind of the non-traditional
she was naughty. She was naughty. She was badass. Come on, bring it, girl.
And her biographer and advocate, a woman named Belinda Nass, suggested that Sherwood's neighbors might have been a little bit jealous of her.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was unfortunately, possibly the seeds for them spinning some witchcraft tales.
Oh, here it comes.
And the goal wasn't so much because she was just a nefarious person, but because all of these small farm-owning families just didn't have a lot of money, and land was money, and it was a way when she became widowed to try to get hold of her land.
Oh.
So, claiming that she was a witch was a great opportunity to undermine her and seize her property, her large property.
Oh.
So her husband James died in 1701, at which time Grace inherited what quote, and I'm using quotes here, you're seeing the air quotes?
I have seen the air quotes.
His property.
Yeah, of course.
Because she didn't remarry, she might have been seen as fair game to all of her neighbors, and for several years, neighbor talked about how this midwife and healer, eventually the widowed mother of 3, had ruined their crops, killed their livestock, and conjured up storms.
Wow, with her spells or something?
With her witchcraft spells.
Now, do you know how old she was or her sons were when her husband died? Were they still children, or were they grown-ups at that point?
Yeah, they were children. She was in her 40s. They may have been older children, but she was supporting them.
Of course. Yeah.
And even before her husband died, Grace had become party to at least a dozen lawsuits in which she had to defend herself against the accusation of witchcraft. And she and her husband originally, while he was alive, often countersuits her accusers for slander. So a little bit of context about this era and the region that they lived in. The existence of witches and demonic forces were widely assumed by American colonists as the work of the devil.
Of course.
Why not?
But of course.
And colonists believed that witches could be identified by very strange and suspect behavior. And Virginians particularly didn't really get into that. They didn't experience, for example, the mass hysteria that took place in the Salem, Massachusetts in between 1692 and 1693, which we covered in what is known as the Salem witch trials.
Yes.
And in the Salem witch trials, 19 people were executed for allegations of witchcraft.
Horrific and ridiculous.
So Virginia as a state generally didn't buy into this whole witchcraft thing.
Smart Virginia.
But people's fears of witchcraft in Virginia particularly weren't based on religious beliefs as they were as much rooted in the idea of folklore. So both secular and religious leaders were much more interested in prosecuting offenses like gossip and slander and fornication, those horrible things.
Oh.
They saw those as more true social threats to stability. And so most Virginia courts were really reluctant to hear accusations of witchcraft, and they were less likely to convict for witchcraft. So unlike in the Salem witch trials, in Virginia, the accuser had to carry the burden of proof. In Salem, Massachusetts, if you remember, the actual accused had to defend and had the burden.
Which is so ridiculous.
Yeah, which was.
Yeah.
And that's how 19 people were killed. Virginia in general tended to ignore evidence that was gathered by alleged supernatural powers. The New England courts were known to convict people based solely on those types of accusations, like what we were talking about, like she killed my crofts or she killed my horses or goats. Virginia required the proof of guilt either through searches of the accused witch for having marks in her body, and I'll elaborate on that in a minute, or by the test of what it was called ducking.
Ducking?
Ducking.
What is ducking, April?
Ducking, I'm glad you asked. Ducking was the practice of holding an alleged witch underwater, and it was believed because the waters were considered pure, it would reject witches and causing them to float up. Whereas if you were innocent of witchcraft, you would basically not rise, and you would not float, and therefore you would drown. So
I'm really confused because people naturally float.
Yeah.
So,
and not only that,
I'm really fucking confused. So if you happen to float, you are a witch.
Yes.
Which is like everybody.
Yes. And if you
or very few people.
And if you didn't float and you were innocent, you basically drowned. So, the innocent drowned, and if you were actually considered a witch, you would float.
Bizarre. I actually dated a guy in high school who would sink.
Who would sink? Yeah. Okay, so he could withstand the ducking test.
It was very strange, but I mean, because we would laugh, like we would all go in a pool, we'd all be hanging out, and we would all float, and you would literally just sink.
See, he could do the ducking test.
He could do the ducking test, but I mean, that's unusual.
He might be dead, but he wouldn't be a warlock.
Okay. God, right?
You're getting the gist of this.
This is so bizarre. Okay, sorry.
So while most Virginians early on tried to really discourage charges of witchcraft because they really thought it was troublesome, the southeast corner of Virginia, around present day what we know as Norfolk and Virginia Beach, which was once called Pungo.
Pungo. I like Pungo better.
Pungo.
Let's go back to Pungo.
So more accusations than any other area in Virginia. Now, according to historian Leslie M. Newman, this may have been due to local poverty. The people in the area just weren't wealthy. Mm-hmm. And in the absence of having the cultural elite, who historically remained restrained from such lawsuits, this particular area of Virginia Beach, there were 19 known witchcraft cases that were brought before the colony in the 17th century. But impressively, all but one ended in acquittals. And that's a little wrong because we'll talk a little bit more about our Sheela in a moment. But the one acquittal that they're referencing was actually a man who was acquitted as a witch. And he was sentenced to 10 stripes or flogging, which is the act of being whipped by a rod or a switch. And then the man was banished from the county. So, he was found guilty of witchcraft. And after that flogging, he basically had to get out of town.
Yeah, he could make a fresh start.
Yeah. And
so, not preferable, but I guess doable.
And in Virginia's favor, if we're looking on the positive side, on the right side of things, there were no executions for witchcraft.
That is good.
But as late as 1736, Virginia's justices of the peace were reminded that witchcraft was still a crime. First-time offenders could potentially face being pillared, which involved that public humiliation of being placed in a device that was either wood or metal, with holes so the person's head and hands dangled out, and feet.
Ooh, that sucks.
And first-time offenders could also be jailed for up to a year.
Whoa. Okay.
So the first
So no executions, but torture
torture
and imprisonment.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So Grace Sherwood was subjected to such allegations, and her
Okay.
first accusation happened in 1697. Richard Capps alleged that she had put a spell on none other than his bull and thus caused its death.
How did he prove this?
Well, the Sherwoods, Grace's husband James was still alive at the time, happened to file a countersuit, a defamation suit against the Capps. And what ended up happening was, by agreement of both parties, the case was dismissed.
Okay.
So he didn't prove it and nothing happened.
Okay, good.
In 1698, Grace was again accused by a different neighbor, John Gisborne, of enchanting his pigs and his cotton crop. Again, no court action was filed.
Wait. Enchanting his pigs and his cotton. How do you enchant pigs and cotton crop? What does that mean to enchant them?
We actually don't know, because no court action followed his accusation, and although the Sherwoods did bring another defamation suit, it was also dismissed.
Good.
But in the same year, and please stick a pin, as I like to say.
April loves to
I
pin and
stick
stuff. She loves
pins and
it.
stuff.
She loves that. Okay,
In
go.
the same year, Elizabeth Barnes, we're sticking a pin in the name Elizabeth Barnes.
Elizabeth Barnes, okay.
Alleged that Grace had assumed the form of a black cat, entered her home, jumped over her bed, drove and whipped her, and left through a door's keyhole.
And how does she prove that?
Well, once again, the allegation was unresolved. And again, Grace and her husband's defamation lawsuit was also lost. But I do need to note that for each failed action, Grace and her husband did have to pay court-related fees.
Oh my
So they
God.
didn't exactly
sucks.
just get off scot-free.
That sucks. And they're already poverty-stricken, right?
Yes, this is not a wealthy couple. This is not people with extra cash for...
So this is before her husband died.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
According to Richard Beale Davis in his journal article on witchcraft in Virginia, by the time Princess Anne County had obviously grown tired of Mrs. Sherwood as a general nuisance. In 1705, Grace Sherwood was involved in a fight with her neighbor, Elizabeth Hill. Grace sued Hill and her husband for assault and battery, and on December 7th, 1705, the accuser, Hill, was awarded damages of 20 shillings, further sending the family, Grace and her husband, into further debt. To make matters worse, in 1701, James, as I mentioned, passed away, and Grace had inherited all of his property. She also lost her greatest ally because her husband helped defend her name.
It sounds like he did.
Yeah.
It sounds like he was a good guy.
Yeah.
A support bro.
A support bro.
Yeah.
So on January 3rd, 1706, at the age of 46, the Hills accused Grace Sherwood of witchcraft. And this time, when Grace failed to answer the charge in court, the court ordered her to appear, charging Grace with bewitching Elizabeth Hill and causing her to have none other than a miscarriage.
How do you prove this shit? Seriously, that's ridiculous. How do you prove that she caused Ms. Hill to have a miscarriage?
Well, funny you should ask that.
Okay.
So in March 1706, the Princess Anne County justices impaneled 2 juries, both made up of women, to consider tangible evidence that Grace might indicate that she was in fact a witch. The first was to look at her body to determine if she was in fact a witch. The second was ordered to look for demon-suckling teats.
You love that word, teats.
I
Remember that?
How do you not love the word teats?
No, I remember you used it. And I was like, what, teats?
It was
What?
about, we were talking about, I remember this. We were talking about milking cows. The way you milk cows is you pull on their teats.
Right, we were talking about the cow the cow figurine that oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name, but the woman who created those dolls.
Oh, yes.
And it's called Milkamoo.
Milkamoo.
Milkamoo. I remember Milkamoo.
I can't remember then. Sheela.
I'm blanking on the Sheela.
Yeah, she was an inventor
terrible.
And she made toys.
She made, but right then and there,
right.
April popped up with teats, and I laughed my ass off. I'm like, do you just use that word teat? Like teats? Really?
Teats.
Okay, go ahead.
So,
sorry.
Demon Suckling Teats is based on both.
Wait. Demon Suckling Teats. Who wants to name their band Demon Suckling Teats? You can have it right now. Seriously.
We're giving it away for free.
Yeah, just acknowledge the SheelaNaGig podcast.
Right.
Demon Suckling Teats. Yes, please. Okay.
Well, what it refers to is an extra nipple or a physical abnormality on the accused witch's body. That was the first jury panel's charge, that they were supposed to look at Grace's body to see if she had a demon suckling teat.
Which means like an extra nipple?
Yes, an extra nipple.
I think I might have one of those actually.
You don't. You're just making that.
No, I'm serious. It's very underdeveloped, but I think I might.
You witch, you. You're a witch.
If anybody's going to be a witch, it's me, right?
Right.
Totally. Okay, go on.
Or any other kind of physical abnormality.
Yeah, Tina.
The first panel was ordered to search Grace's house.
Oh, for a nipple.
No, not for nipples. For waxen or based figures, which were considered as tangible evidence that she might actually be a witch.
Like she's casting spells on waxen figurines.
Right, that she's creating these figurines.
Like voodoo dolls. Almost.
Yes, like voodoo dolls, and I missed that. My apologies. Okay. The second panel was supposed to search her body for this demon suckling teat.
Wait, I just have to say demon suckling teat again.
Okay.
So demon. I think I have a demon suckling teat. I'm like, okay, this is a little TMI, but I might have one.
She doesn't ignore her. La 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 la. I don't want to
okay.
picture it. I just don't want to picture it. Okay.
You want to show you?
So, anyway, in both instances, and you'll like this. You're gonna like this. Both of those panels were reluctant. They were made up of local residents, and they were reluctant to perform their task. And so, remarkably, both juries refused to conduct either search.
But why?
Because they weren't comfortable with it.
They thought it was ridiculous?
I don't know if they thought it was ridiculous, but they didn't want to do it.
Okay.
For whatever reason, they did not want to do it.
Yeah.
So after 2 months of deliberations, because now the courts don't know what to do, 2 jury panels refused to do their job.
Yeah.
On March 7th, 1706, Grace was examined by a jury of 12 ancient and knowing women, and I use quotes again, ancient and knowing women.
Ancient and knowing women, I like that too.
And this group were appointed to search for markings on her body that might be signs of the devil. And it turns out that they discovered 2 marks that were not theirs or like those of any other women. They found 2 marks that were abnormal. And who was the foreman of this panel? None other than, remember, we stuck a pin in it, Elizabeth Barnes.
Oh, Barnes. I said Blackwell, but I didn't know Barnes.
No, Blackwell was the first woman to be licensed as a physician.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Elizabeth Barnes.
It was B. Yeah,
it was B. Exactly right.
Elizabeth Barnes, the woman who had previously accused Grace of witchcraft. So maybe a little suspect.
Wow. Okay.
So neither the Williamsburg colonial authorities nor the local court in Princess Anne were willing to declare Grace a witch based on that testimony.
Got it. I have a little side note.
Yes, yeah.
Little side note is this.
Yes.
So you all know I play in a traditional Irish pub band for 26 years called Paddy's Pig. We wrote a song a few years back, and it was based on my grandmother, because my grandmother had this thing when I was born. I have what's called pitchfork veins. You can actually see them really well right now.
Yes. They look like pitchforks.
They're unusual. And I have pitchfork veins.
That proves it. You're a witch.
That is a sign of the devil.
You're a witch.
That is the sign of the devil. This is the sign of the devil.
Well, that explains a lot.
I think I've only met 2 other people who have it. But when my grandmother saw my pitchfork veins, she was very upset.
I'm sure she was.
And she told my mother, this one's going to be trouble. She's gonna be trouble, this one.
Well, if ever there wasn't a prediction that proved to be true. Yeah.
So we wrote a song about it. And
the pitchfork.
Yeah. And we actually have an album named after it. And you know, it's a good song. And Mike and I wrote it together, actually.
Who's your husband?
Mike is my husband.
Yeah.
And he's also in Patty's Pig with me.
Yeah.
And it's a very funny song. So often when we play it, I tell the story of my grandmother and the pitchfork veins. And then I say, does anybody in the audience have pitchfork veins? Because if you do, you're going to get a free CD right now. And every once in a while, somebody comes. Yeah, but often they come up and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But mine are very, look at that.
Oh, so telling. You know, the sun is like shining right on her veins and they look like pitchforks.
It looks like a full-on pitchfork. So that is the sign of the devil. And it makes perfect sense. But sorry, I digress again. But I had to throw that in because I think it's interesting.
This is making me a little nervous, but I'll continue. Okay.
I'm sure. I think about those days of the witches. I am sure I would have been like first, first accused.
Roast. Right.
I can't even imagine living in those times. I could not. I would never be able to erase my full self, and I would surely be a witch.
Burning at the stake.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So, go on.
Okay. So, going back to Williamsburg colonial authorities, they weren't willing, nor the local courts, and Princess Anne were willing to declare Grace a witch. I mean, they were really reluctant, and that was...
Wait, Grace of witch?
They were not willing to declare Grace a witch.
Oh, sorry. I thought this expression, like Grace of witch.
Grace is our Sheela. Right.
I kind of like, I know she's our Sheela, but I thought it was like Grace of witch. I thought it was an expression. But
it's not an expression.
Okay.
They literally didn't want to declare her.
And I'm really glad
that,
West Virginia was a little bit smarter than Massachusetts.
Well, hang on.
I'm here to say, okay.
All right. Not as a bit more progressive than definitely Massachusetts, but those in Williamsburg considered the charge overly vague, and on April 16th, instructed by the local courts to examine the case more fully, the court appearance with Grace had to travel 16 miles from her farm in Pungo. Remember, she doesn't have a lot of money, to the court's location to figure out what the heck to do. And on May 2nd, 1706, the county justices noted that while no particular act of malfeasance had been alleged against Grace, there was, quote unquote, great cause of suspicion. And so the sheriff of Princess Anne County took Grace into custody. On July 5th of 1706, the justices ordered a trial by ducking. Remember ducking?
Wait, malfeasance. Can we talk about malfeasance?
Malfeasance?
That's such a great word.
It is a great
word. And I've never heard it before. Malfeasance. What does that mean?
Malintent. It's like some kind of...
I'm going to start using that word, malfeasance. Okay, so they took her into custody. Go on.
And they decided to order her for a trial of ducking. Because remember, there's two ways that you assess whether somebody was a witch back then. You either looked in their home for signs of them creating voodoo kinds of materials.
Wax
figurines. Or they had that teat, that extra teat.
That's me. And we have the pitchfork veins and the teat. What's going on with that?
And then the second way was by ducking. And ducking meaning you put them underwater. Yeah. Now, this isn't about demon sucking teeth.
Okay.
This is about ducking underwater. And if you remember, if you drowned, you were innocent. And if you floated, you were a witch.
That just sucks.
You kind of get it.
I'm choking a little bit because I'm laughing so hard. But because that is ridiculous. If you sink, and you drown, you're dead anyway. You're innocent,
right?
But if you float, like 98% of people, you're a fucking witch,
right?
Oh.
So, but Virginia was not as, like I said, they weren't Massachusetts, okay?
Yeah.
So on July 5th, 1706, the justices ordered a trial of ducking with Grace's consent. She agreed to it. Only heavy rains caused a postponement until July 10th because the courts didn't want her to get sick in the rain. They were concerned, among other things, she might contract
Don't get
pneumonia.
our witch sick. Don't get our fucking witch sick.
No.
But
on July 10th, Grace was taken to Lynnhaven Parish Church, where she was married, placed on a stool, and ordered to ask for forgiveness for her witchery. At which time she replied, I be not a witch, I be a healer.
Oh.
Right?
So she just had to ask for forgiveness for
Yeah.
being a witch?
Yeah.
But she refused to do that.
Correct.
And just recanted with, I am a healer.
I am a healer because
If she had just said, I'm a witch and I asked for forgiveness, everything would have been forgiven?
Yep.
Okay.
But she was a healer. She was, if you recall, a midwife, and she grew herbs and she helped the sick and
are there
the animals. Yeah.
Are there
And
plenty of stories of her helping people? I mean,
yes.
is that out there too?
That's well known.
Well known.
Hang on. Stick a pin in that. I'll be back.
Okay.
Grace was taken down a dirt lane now known as Witch Duck Road.
Witch Duck Road, which you talked about in the beginning. Yeah.
Road. Yes, I did. At about 10 o'clock a.m. on July 10th, 1706. News spread, and the event drew crowds from all over the colony. And they began to shout, Duck the witch! Duck the witch! Duck the witch! And again, according to the principles of trial by water, if Grace floated, she would be deemed guilty of witchcraft. If she did not float, she would be innocent. But I want to note here, this is important, that it was not intended for Grace to drown. The court did order that if she didn't rise up, they would pull her out of the waters before she drowned. So there
nice of them.
Yeah, isn't that sweet?
It's really lovely. Yeah.
So 5 women of Lynnhaven Parish Church examined Grace's naked body on the shorelines for any devices she might have to free herself, and then covered her with a sack. 6 of the justices who ordered the ducking rowed out to the river in one boat, and in a second boat there was the sheriff, the magistrate, and none other than Grace herself.
This just sucks.
Yes.
It's awful.
Just before she was pushed off the boat, it was said that Grace stated under clear skies, and I quote, Before this day be through, you will all get the worst ducking than I.
What does that mean?
I think what she was trying to say is that they are performing something more horrible than she was receiving. I think that's, or at least that was my interpretation of those words.
I think that's accurate. Poor Grace. Oh, that's just terrible.
Yeah. She was bound across her body, her right thumb to her left big toe, and her left thumb to her right toe.
Ooh.
She was, and I quote, cast into the river, and she quickly floated up to the surface.
As people do.
As people do.
Oh my God.
So the sheriff tied a 13-pound Bible around her neck, which, of course, caused her to sink. But Grace...
Wait, a 13-pound Bible?
Bible. Yes, you heard that correctly.
I don't think I've ever seen a 13-pound Bible. Have you?
I'm just reporting facts. This is what I read.
Oh my God.
If it was written, it must be true, right? So it caused Grace to sink. But Grace, underwater, untied herself from the Bible, and she returned to the surface, which was, in the eyes of those who judged her, convincing proof for many that she was indeed a witch.
Oh, Grace!
As she pulled herself out of the water, a downpour of rain reportedly started, drenching the onlookers, and several women who examined Grace for additional proof found 2 things like teats on her private parts of a black color.
Black?
Black.
She had black teats?
I guess so. That's what they said.
I don't have black teats.
I'm very relieved to know that. Grace was jailed while she awaited further proceedings. Now, it's really unclear because, records in the 1700s weren't exactly voluminous and well documented.
Yeah.
So it's unclear exactly what happened to her after the ducking, since most court records had been lost. But she did serve an unknown amount of time in jail, possibly as long as 7 years and 9 months.
Oh.
And she was ordered to be detained to be brought to a future trial, but there are no records of any other trials.
Okay.
So it's possible that those charges were dismissed at some point.
I hope so.
On September 1st, 1708, she was ordered to pay Christopher Coke 600 pounds of tobacco for reasons unknown, again due to the absence of records. And there's also no mention of the payment, so we don't know if she ever did that. And being jailed, I would assume she had no money to pay.
Oh, poor Grace.
She appears to have been released from prison sometime in or before 1714.
Okay.
And since in that year she paid back taxes on her 145-acre property, which Virginia Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood helped her to recover from Princess Anne County. On the banks of Muddy Creek, off of what is now known as Muddy Creek Road, Grace did live out the remaining years of her life quietly on her property until her death in 1740 at roughly the age of 80.
Okay.
She's believed to have died in August or September of 1740, and in her will, she left 5 shillings to her sons James and Richard, and she left everything else, including the property, to her eldest son John. And according to legend, Grace's sons put her body near the fireplace.
Why? Wait, why?
I don't know. There's
I'd
no.
be pissed.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy if I was James or
supposed to divide
Richard.
it evenly. I know, right?
John gets all the goods.
Exactly. You're supposed to divide it evenly, aren't you?
That was, well,
No.
I don't
There's
know.
we don't know. Maybe there were some
Okay.
reasons for that. Okay, go on. Sorry.
But according to legend, Grace's sons put her body near the fireplace and a wind came down the chimney. Her body was said to have disappeared in the embers, leaving only a cloven hoof print as a clue.
Well, obviously she was a witch.
Yeah, obviously.
That's crazy. And that was their assessment of what happened?
Well, that's legend.
Legend.
And there's a lot of legends and
course.
not a lot of documentation. So take this with whatever salt you're
Well,
happy to put on your fish
I
today.
do want to go back. I do
Yeah.
want to go back to. I always go back to this because obviously, we have talked about Pocahontas and we've talked
Yeah.
about, legend. We've talked about the fact that people think if you don't write it down, it's not really
Right.
true.
Yes, right.
And that is not the case necessarily, as we learned with Pocahontas. And for example, a lot of indigenous people talk about, they do storytelling and it's passed on from generation to generation. So I do want to dismiss that a little bit because I do think that that's very powerful.
It is. And there are a lot of legends about Grace.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are just unproven or really unknown, unfactual, but I thought I'd share it.
No, we don't know.
Grace does lie in an unmarked grave under some trees in the field near the intersection of Pungo Ferry Road and Princess Anne Road in Virginia Beach.
Why unmarked?
I thought they were poor.
Well, they were poor, but she gave those sons some money.
Hang on.
Okay, sorry. Go on.
Let's stick a pin in that one. Stories about the devil taking her body, unnatural storms, and loitering black cats quickly rose up after her
Of course
death.
they did.
And it said that local men killed every feline they could find.
Oh.
This widespread killing of cats might have been caused by the infestation of rats and mice that was recorded in Princess Anne County in 1743. Grace's home in Muddy Creek stood for over 200 years. After being vandalized several times in the 20th century, all that remains in 2002 were the brick chimneys, which were demolished in November of 2002.
Whoa.
Yeah.
2002. That's pretty
2002,
recently.
Yeah. Now that all that remains are a few bricks and a part of the foundation, which is overgrown, and the property is now owned by the federal government as part of Back Bay National Wild Refuge. So not much is known about Grace Sherwood's case until Virginia Beach historian and author Louisa Venable Kyle wrote a children's book about her in 1973 called The Witch of Pungo. It is a collection of 7 local folk tales written as fiction, although based on historical events.
Okay.
And Grace's story was also adapted for Cry Witch, a courtroom drama at Colonial Williamsburg, the restored early capital of Virginia.
Okay.
Today, a statue created by California sculptor Robert Cunningham which depicts Grace with a raccoon and a basket full of rosemary, was unveiled on April 21st, 2007, and it was done on the site of the present-day Centra Bayside Hospital, located near the site of both the Colonial Courthouse and the Ducking Point.
Wow.
The raccoon represents Grace's love of animals, and the rosemary represents her knowledge of herbal healing.
Oh, of course.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful, yeah.
A Virginia Department of Historic Resources marker was erected in 2002, approximately 25 yards from Grace's statue, and the place of ducking and the adjacent land are named Witch Duck Bay and Witch Duck Point. A portion of Virginia State Route 190 in Virginia Beach, a north-south thoroughfare on its western side, has been named Witch Duck Road.
Oh, wow.
Grace is also commemorated in Virginia Beach, including Sherwood Lane and Witch Point Trail. In 2014, a memorial marker was placed at the herb garden of the Old Donation Episcopal Church, which was Grace's former parish church, located in Virginia Beach. Isn't that sweet?
That is sweet.
A local legend in Virginia Beach claims that all the rosemary growing there originated from a single plant Sherwood carried in an eggshell from England.
Oh my goodness!
Now, her mother was from England, so I'm not really sure how Grace would have carried that from England.
But who knows?
But who knows?
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Belinda Nash petitioned 3 governors over 20 years to have Grace Sherwood formally exonerated. And on July 10th, 2006, at 10 o'clock a.m., exactly 300 years to the date, Grace's good name was restored by Governor Timothy King.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that great?
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah. A bronze statue of Grace Sherwood, sculpted by Robert Cunningham, now sits, as I mentioned, in front of the Centra Independence Hospital in Virginia Beach. And Belinda Nash co-authored A Place and Time, and this is a novel detailing Grace's trial and how the times played their part in her conviction.
Wow. That's amazing. I love that story. April, well done. I love that. And somebody I've absolutely never heard of.
Yeah, me either.
And I mean, we so often see these women who are convicted of being witches when they were just like Marie Laveau.
Yeah.
When they were, she was convicted, or everybody thought she was a voodoo queen, But so often they're healers.
Yes.
They're actually healers, but then everybody sees them as these witches.
Well, she was fair game, partly because she was a healer and partly because she owned a lot of land in a poor area.
Yeah,
and so
people wanted that land.
She became fair game to a lot of people. But I really want to salute the modern day historians who've resurrected her story. And if you go online, there's really accounts as best they could, given the scantness of records at the time.
Yeah.
Really nice details about
how cool. Well done. Again, I was completely intrigued, and I learned about somebody I did not know about. I love Grace.
Me too.
I would have been friends with Grace for sure.
Oh yeah, she's
Wouldn't
a cool
you have been
lady.
friends with Grace?
Absolutely.
We would have both been friends with Grace.
But we want to sit Grace down and say, Grace, no, why didn't you give your other son some property? like we're both a little credulous. Why did John get everything?
It's true. It is true. I'm still a little bit stuck on that, but I'm going to let that go.
We're going to let that go.
Yeah, we're going to let that go. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing her.
Well, thank you for listening.
What a wonderful Sheela to start out spooky season.
Yes.
Yes.
So, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Ooh, spooky season. Yes. No, that was awesome. And we'll be returning with more spooky Sheelas. You just wait and see. It's coming up. It is October. Yeah.
In your way.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. And ladies, keep fighting.
Keep fighting.
Keep fighting.
Peace out.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Unabashed in your clothes.